From Unity of Houston, Texas, this is the Awakened Life with Reverend Howard Caesar. Unity is a non-denominational spiritual community providing a positive, practical, and progressive approach to Christianity. Let's join the service in progress now with Reverend Howard Caesar.
I want to begin this morning by sharing with you something that Winston Churchill said that I think we can all take to heart. It's very powerful. To me it was, and very meaningful, and something you can carry with you in your pouch of truth, if you would. Anyway, he said, "Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts." I love that. You know, we can have successes and then not so great successes. So a success is not final. They come and they go, and you have more, and some aren't. And then failures we have setbacks and things, but they're not fatal. And so the key is, it's the courage to continue that really counts. Are we able to push through after we've had some setbacks and some difficult things happen to us? I want to tell you about a guy who joined a baseball team after college, kind of baseball team. And actually, I played a lot of first base, and this guy was a second baseman. And this was made up of guys that had, kind of starred or played in high school or college, and they didn't get drafted, and so they were continuing to play. There were guys in their 20s and 30s, as age, early 30s. And it was sometimes referred to as semi-pro, because at the end of the season you went to like it was called a semi-pro tournament if you qualified. Anyway, this guy had played in high school, and there had been a lapse of time where he hadn't played for a while and competitively. So he joined the team and didn't play the first two games. They won the first two games, and they already had really a solid second baseman. But the third game, they put him in. And what happened was, it was the first inning. And you guys know baseball, right? Okay, you like good sports story? Okay. Well, first inning, there was a guy on the mound named Kenny. Kenny was about 33 years old, and he was an old veteran. He had won a lot of games in that league, actually, through the years, and was well respected. There was one of the pitches to the first batter was a sharp grounder to the second baseman, this guy. And I have to tell you that this guy had just bought a new glove, so it was stiff, and it hadn't really been worked in. If you're a baseball player, you really got to work that thing loose. So anyway, the ball came and it hit his glove and popped out for an error. And so now there's a guy on first base and nobody out. And the next guy up hits a home run. Kenny wasn't very happy, the pitcher. And, because, it would have been one run instead of two runs without that error by that second baseman. So anyway, what happened is he was shaken a little bit, and he walked the next batter. So the team is down 2-0. There's a man on first, nobody out, and the next batter hits a sharp grounder to the third baseman. And so, wow, potential second double play, right? Getting out of this inning pretty much. And so he fields the ball and he throws to the second base very fast before the guy even gets to the base. And so the ball is streaming fast there. He throws it to the low and to the outside part of second base, so it's even further for the second baseman to have to get to. So he's running and he gets to the bag. All you have to do is hit the bag and catch the ball. Does this, pops out. Oh gosh, yeah, isn't that terrible? Kenny thought it was terrible. So now, down 2-0, guys on first and second, nobody out. Kenny's a little shaken, grabbing dirt and throwing it down and staring down that second baseman. Not too nicely. He wasn't all that supportive at this point. Next batter up, I don't know on what pitch, hits a home run. A home run. So now there's nobody out, down 5-0, okay? If that second baseman just could play, they'd probably be out of the inning. That's what Kenny is thinking. So Next batter hits a pop fly into short right field. And what happens when that happens is that the right fielder comes dashing in, charging in. The second baseman starts going out. And it's potential clashville. And so anyway, this second baseman misjudged the fly and is going like one of these instead of turning and running and getting it over your shoulder. So he's doing this. You like this? And the other guy's charging in, and actually the last minute, the right fielder says, I got it, and he didn't. And they crashed, and the ball plopped on the ground, and the guy ends up on second base because he's running all the time. It's in the air. So Kenny is looking at that second baseman again, not very nicely, and the manager comes out of the dugout. The manager goes to the mound and has a few words with Kenny, and then turns to the second baseman and says, I'm sorry, you got to come out of the game. And he brings his usual second baseman in and replaces him in the middle of the inning, which is a huge humiliation. Second baseman's already humiliated. The truth is, I was that second baseman. I later played first. So I was absolutely horrified, humiliated, wanted to hide, just go somewhere, you know. It was a bad, horrific experience. I was very, very embarrassed. And so what do you do when you have that kind of a setback, you know? You're wanting to do well, and it's just a huge, huge seeming failure. And you apologize to Kenny, and you apologize to the team, and when they come in, you have to face them. And it's something that is hard to get rid of. It kind of is a residue that lives with you. In fact, I was talking to a person at an earlier service, at the early service, and he shared how, he said, you know, it reminded me back when I was in the 6th grade and I tried to make the hockey team. And he said, I tried so hard, and he teared up. He teared up. And this is a man in probably his 50s. It was still with him, that the fact that he didn't make the team, and it was so important to him. So we have moments like that. Maybe you have moments like that. And, you know, failure is not fatal. You have to continue on. You know, that's what really counts. Can you push through that stuff? Churchill said, success is not final, failure is not fatal, and it's the courage to continue that counts. So I decided that I wasn't going to quit. I was going to continue on. I was going to cheer the guys on, whatever. I never got to play one at bat the rest of that season. I was not a bad player. I had a bad day. I had a bad day, you know? And we can all have a bad day, you know? And you may be reflecting on your moment in time where you had a setback that was painful. Might not have been baseball, might not have been hockey. It might have been a relationship. It might have been a job. It might have been a project. You know, it's your story. We all have moments where we're judged and evaluated. I was talking to an artist. Artist said, oh, you have no idea. All the people walking by, and you're standing there kind of, they don't know you're the one that painted that painting or whatever. And so there's so many aspects of life in which we judge ourselves, or we feel we're being judged or whatever. And we just want to do well. We want to be loved, and that's at the bottom line of it all. So let me tell you about a Bible story that we're all familiar with, and it's the story of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. And in the garden, of course, is every tree is pleasant to the sight and good to eat, good as food. And in addition to that, in the midst of the garden, as it states, is the tree of life. And also in the midst of the garden is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Okay, good and evil. And another way of saying that, that I like to say, is that the tree of life is singular truth. It's absolutely oneness with the truth, oneness with God. It's life-giving. As Jesus said, you shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free. But then there's this other tree, which is the tree of duality, which is the tree of good and not good, all right? And so they were warned that if you eat of that and partake that, now you have digested into your consciousness, in essence, not just absolute good and truth, but now you have begun to digest not truth, non-truth, non-good. And you begin to identify in varying dimensions with that about yourself, about others, about the world, situations and circumstances. So be careful what you eat, you know. So as the story goes, you know, they were told that they were not to eat of this and they would die, surely die. And so you get to the end of the 3rd chapter of Genesis, and it says that they both were naked and they were not ashamed. And basically what it's saying that at this point they have not eaten of it. There is not anything that they would judge as bad, you see, whether it was their bodies, their beliefs, their world, their feelings, their thoughts. Nothing was hidden. They were unashamed. Everything was out there. They were real. They were authentic, whole, perfect, made in the image and after the likeness. They were in a good place. Then they did eat. And we won't get into who to blame. Some believe it was a serpent, some believe it was a woman. It doesn't matter. They ate, okay? We're not into blame here at Unity. The point is they did eat, and interestingly enough, one would say, well, they didn't die. But that's not what the story was really teaching. They did die. They died, or what they gave death to was only the tree of life, only that which was life-giving flowing through them, partaking of it, digesting it, living from it. They now had died to that state and had given way to duality, good and less than good, truth and not truth, truth and lies about oneself and the world and what have you, oneness and separation, all of that. And so basically, you know, there was a part of them now that was not attuned to the life-giving energies that God was saying you can have, and it will give you the truth that will set you free. And so it basically was thoughts, ideas, beliefs, you know, feelings that take one apart. And they now had let in reasons not to love themselves. Reasons not to love themselves. That's big. That's big. You want to be happy in life? Learn to love yourself, no matter what the failures or the winnings or whatever. Love yourself through it all. It's so important. And so now you have this tree of life, which is representing unconditional love. It is representing God. And then the other tree, which I like to say is almost like, you know, how you take a flower and you pick the petals and it says, he loves me not. I love me not. The world loves me not. And it just depends, because now you have duality. And there are both petals, and that's kind of what's going on in one's mind. And so our journey through life becomes one of really trying to get back to partaking of the tree of life, partaking of that which is life-giving, that which is of truth, that which allows you to love yourself unconditionally, love the world. That's the nature. And less partake of that which is good and not good. So the metaphysics of that, you know, some people don't understand that, you know, they only take the Bible literally, but the Bible is full of that as metaphysics, which is beyond the physical, beyond the literal. And so there is that depth of meaning that is hidden in that story. And so it's more than just feeling naked physically. It's talking about just feeling open and honest and authentic and real, and not having to hide because you have fears and ideas and beliefs about yourself that feel like it's not good enough, and I don't measure up, and I'm not okay, and all that goes on internally through duality. And so I like to say, if you really wonder whether the Bible in that particular story is talking metaphysically or literally, ask yourself, if you believe that Adam and Eve were the only two people and the first two people on earth, and they had sons, Cain and Abel. Well, later Cain and Abel married. Where did the wives come from? You know, so it's an interesting question. If you have the answer, let me know. So we hide parts of ourselves from others, and that's what I'm saying. When we get hurt and we lose that sense of who we are sometimes, and then we can hide out. There's a great quote by August Wilson, and what he says is this. He says, "Confront the dark parts of yourself and work to banish them with illumination and forgiveness. Your willingness to wrestle with your demons will cause your angels to sing." I love that. It's like you have angels around you, and if you will face those aspects of yourself that you have, kind of squelched who you really are, if you banish them with a renewed illumination, you banish them with a sense of forgiveness and letting go, that will cause your angels to sing. I love that. By the way, the end of the baseball story was the next year I did go out. I played first base the rest of my time playing. I made and was elected to the All-Star team, and my last year, which was the year at the end of the season, I went into ministerial school, back to school. And that last year, I had surgery on my wrist, major surgery, and was rehabbing it, and so I was late in being able to play that season. And I actually hit over 450 in that league. And I would have won the batting title. Oh, here's a little, I got to let my light shine. But I would have won the batting title, but I was short a few times at bat. You have to qualify a minimum number of times at bat, and because I had been injured, I didn't qualify. But I didn't care. I didn't care because it was like a triumph inside of me to see something through, to continue, not to run from a setback, to press on. And they can be of various types of setbacks, of course. I think of our quarterback for the Texans. He had a bad day. He had a bad day in the playoffs. 5 turnovers, 4 interceptions, and 1 fumble. I know some of you didn't know anything about what happened that day. But I had a few people in the stands. He had a national TV audience and the whole city of Houston rooting to not have that happen. So Carrie, my heart goes out to a person like that, And what he needs to know is that failure is not fatal and that he will continue on, and I wish him the best, really. And I just had to share that because he came to my mind. But I want to tell you about some penguins. And penguins. And in Victoria, Australia, there is an island. It's called Phillip Island. And on the shores, you will find a ways off at the water's edge, burrows, thousands and thousands of burrows of these fairy penguins, a very small kind of penguin. They're only like a foot tall, something like that. And each morning, these penguins go out to sea. And they're out gathering food so that they can bring it back to their young and to the chicks. And so they're pretty much out there all day. They feed themselves, and then they bring some food within them. And they basically come in the evening. There was an individual who lived in Australia and said, "Wow, you really helped me with that memory." He said, because he was standing there with his son one day, and he told him something's going to happen. And his son was like, "When's it going to happen, Dad?" And all of a sudden, whoosh, thousands of them came scurrying in on the waves, thousands onto the beach. It was just a sight to behold, these fairy penguins. And what's interesting is that they then gather in groups at the water's edge. And their burrows are like 100 yards up the beach. And so there is a kind of a situation where they gather in groups, and then all of a sudden they take off and waddle, like, you love that, I know, to the burrows. And they're headed toward the burrows, but they don't make it. They only go a portion of the way, and then they turn, and then they're back to the water's edge. And in groups like that, they're doing. And then another group goes and does the same thing. And it's crazy, but essentially, they eventually this goes on and until it's almost dusk, and finally a group makes it, and then another group makes it, but it's a long ways. They go too slow. As hard as they waddle, you know, they're skilled in the water. But on the sand, getting to the burrows, it's dangerous. And the reason why they keep, you know, going and then coming back and going and then hesitating and coming back and turning like that is because at sea, they're fast swimmers. They know what they're doing. They can go deep and nothing can catch them. They're fast. And their burrows are deep and they feel safe in them. It's where their chicks are. But that 100 yards between the water and the burrows, they're vulnerable. They're wide open to hawks and eagles and cats and dogs and anything else that is lurking, and they know that. And so when they begin to scurry toward the burrow, anything can frighten them. Their own shadow, any kind of movement, and they turn and they're coming back. As a group, it's interesting, even if one turns, they all turn in that group that they're huddled with. And so, you know, basically what we're talking about is that we are similar to that at times. You know, we have fears. We're not sure we're going to make it across from where we've been on the water's edge, where it's comfortable, where we're familiar. We have someplace we want to get to, something we want to do, something we want to be, somehow something we want to demonstrate, maybe try, something new. And there's a part of us that keeps going and coming back, and going and coming back, and we're frightened by our shadow. Carl Jung would agree. You know, there's a part of us on the dark side, whatever, that yanks us back. And so we're afraid that we'll be exposed, we'll be too vulnerable. We might fail, you know, we might look bad. We might be considered not good enough, criticized. We might have love go away, even our own. There's a quote by William Faulkner. He says, you cannot swim for new horizons until you have the courage to lose sight of the shore. So you have to look at whether you've burrowed where it's safe. You know, we even have that saying, you know, we're hiding our head in the sands. We're not really looking up where we want to go and getting there, and because we're in the sands of our yesterdays, in a sense. We all make mistakes, and mistakes call for correction, not punishment. And failures are not fatal. They're not meant to be. Former President Richard Nixon is infamous for a mistake he made related to the Watergate scandal. And there were those who said he disgraced the office of president. And when Hubert Humphrey died, he was former U.S. vice president, when he died, Nixon attended that funeral. And this was after Watergate, and there were dignitaries that came from around the country and really around the world, and they were there at that funeral. And as they were gathering and coming in, Nixon was there and made to feel very unwelcome. People turned their eyes away, like didn't want to acknowledge that he was there. Conversations with him that actually did happen were just a few words and over quickly. People just wanted to get away from him, and he undoubtedly felt the message of being ostracized. Well, in comes Jimmy Carter, who was the president at that time, and he walked into the room, and he was of a different political party even than Nixon, and he was headed for his seat. He knew where he was supposed to go, and out of the corner of his eye, he saw Nixon standing all alone. And so immediately he changed his course, and he walked over to Nixon. He held out his hand, and with a genuine smile, you know, he embraced Nixon, and he said, "Welcome home, Mr. President, welcome home," with that big Jimmy Carter smile. And it was an act of grace, is what we would say, because unconditional love, it doesn't require good behavior for no reward. Unconditional love gives no reason to love, it just loves. It comes from pure grace. And I love what Maya Angelou, you know, beautiful, beautiful lady, has to say about this very thing. She said, "Have enough courage to trust love one more time, and always one more time." So there's never a time that it isn't one more time. I love that. She put that so beautifully. So it is never too late or too early, really, for you to do what you want to do, or for you to be what you want to be. And we can make the best of any situation, or we can make the worst of any situation. We probably have memories of having done that, for sure. But when you look at your life, and if there's some part of it that you're not happy with, or you're not satisfied with, have the courage to move beyond what that is frustrating you, and move in the direction of fulfillment, and not be afraid. Have the courage to continue on. Nelson Mandela said it very well. He said, "I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear." So we mess up, we make mistakes, and we have to be able to not allow that to be a fatal setback that keeps us from moving forward in various ways as we are so led. And so have the courage to continue on. Have the courage to trust love one more time, and always one more time. The tree of life is in you. The tree of life is God. The tree of life is unconditional love. And that unconditional love is loving you forward. So accept it, be it, live in it, partake of it, eat hearty. God bless you all. Hi, I'm Reverend Howard Caesar, and I'd like to personally invite you to celebrate Easter at Unity of Houston. Easter is a very spiritual time. It's about renewal, resurrection, and celebration. And at Unity, we have a wonderful celebration planned for you and your family. We have outstanding music, which includes a special trio and our choir and more. We also have an Easter extravaganza, which is planned for the children. And those festivities include an egg hunt, face painting, games, a petting zoo, and even a visit with the Easter Bunny. So tell your friends, bring your family. A happy Easter from Unity of Houston, and I hope to see you on Easter at either our 9 or 11 a.m. service. God bless you all.
When you visit Unity of Houston, you'll find a spiritual community, a church where you can connect and learn and grow with a progressive approach to Christianity. At Unity, we welcome you no matter what your beliefs. You'll find a teaching, loving, inspiring experience as we help each other be all we're created to be. Check us out. We'd love to have you. Find us online at unityhouston.org, and remember, life is meant to be good.
Thank you for joining us for today's message. We invite you to be with us again next Sunday. Unity is inclusive, welcoming people of all walks of life in dignity and love. We believe that love, strength, and goodness dwells within you. May we all live in unity with God, humanity, and all of God's creation. And remember, as Reverend Caesar says, life is meant to be good.